We interrupt this program for a special news bulletin.
Throws toward the corner of the end zone. It is intercepted! Intercepted! The Ducks have the ball!
To the end zone! Touchdown, Oregon! Mariota dives! Touchdown! They hand it off straight out! C.J. Burdell wins the game for Oregon!
Inside the 10! A hat-trick, a touchdown from Justin Herbert! Howard's going to run for it. Time runs out, and that'll do it! Welcome to the Big Ten, Oregon! They storm the field at Autzen!
All right, Duck fans, here we go. Welcome into another episode of the Ducks Rising podcast, sponsored by Backer. My name is Zachary, Neel. You know my co-host over there, Travis Rooke-Ley. Travis, what's up, man? How we doing?
Game week, we've made it. No more speculative talk in the offseason, no more replays, we're ready to roll.
It has been such a long offseason. It's been like 9 months since we watched live Oregon Ducks football. I can't believe it's been that long.
I feel like the unknown of, we've talked so much about how this team's, got new players, new pieces, everything. I find myself just so excited to watch. I feel like I'm as excited to watch the threes as the ones on Saturday.
Absolutely.
I'm just fired up to watch these guys.
Well, it's like we used to say that, football wasn't a year-round sport. Like, it is a year-round sport now, so there's not really an off-season. But I almost feel like that's made the off-season feel even longer because you don't really get a break from it. You just get constantly reminded that you're not in the regular season. I'm so excited for actual football to be back on Saturday. Like Travis said, we are finally at game week. Our first official game preview podcast is coming here today. Oregon versus Montana State this Saturday at 1 p.m. We're going to break things down, look at matchups, give you some predictions, and get this thing rolling. Just a reminder, if you have not already, please go subscribe to our YouTube channel and give us a rating and review on your podcasting app of choice. We've got a really, really great thing going here at Ducks Rising. We're offering some incredible content to the fans.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone, for subscribing, everyone who's been a part of this. It's been exciting to just meet so many new members the last few weeks. I feel like the chat in the off season can be a little on and off, and people are dropping in and out for recruiting and different things. But it has been a lively community lately, and just as I've been preaching every day, just A+ ball talk, people excited, people fired up for Saturday, just like us.
I feel like they're so hungry. They're just like us. I mean, they're so hungry for new things to talk about because you can only talk about the two deep so much.
I think I'm on version probably 8 of my 2 deep in the off season, so I'm excited to see which one will have the most correct answers. I'm pretty much just back to square one with where it started in February, so We'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, before we get into things, our weekly housekeeping, Ducks Rising Film Room dropped earlier this week. I think this might have honestly been my favorite one yet. Seriously, Jeff dove into the Oregon Ducks defense and went over some scheme stuff that they did last year with pressures and coverages. I was completely locked in for 27 minutes. I'll tell you that much.
I think I'm on my second viewing so far. And as somebody, I just never played high-level football in any way. So, I feel like from, playing NCAA Madden, I can pick up on offensive scheme, but I've never understood, simulated pressures, what's this guy's job, what's this guy's assignment. So talk about getting ready for week 1 and be able to watch these defenders we're so excited to watch. Jeff's teaching us the way to do it. So if you haven't yet, this is the must-watch segment, I feel like.
Completely agree. I was a cornerback at the famed South Eugene High School, which is a football powerhouse here. So I can say I did not play high level football either.
Hey, at least they still had the program when you were there. So
that's very, very true. If you have not yet, make sure to go check out the Ducks Rising Alumni Corner. Last week I sat down with the one and only Achilles Smith Sr. This week Travis is sitting down with Ifo Ekbre Olamu. That should be coming out later this week, so check that out when it comes. As for today's show, like I said, we're going to give you a full preview on Montana State and what to expect on Saturday. First, I want to give Travis the floor and give him an opportunity to dive into his 10 takeaways column that dropped earlier today on Ducks Rising and just take a bit of a broader view on the season as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. So many listeners possibly were kind of a part of things over Scoop Duck before that, different kind of blogs out there. I started writing a takeaways column a long time ago. It's kind of how I got my start in the quote unquote media per se. So it's just been exciting to write that column and see it grow and see viewers and listeners and engagement rise. So what I've always done is just a kind of a mega season preview, touch on depth chart, season predictions, schedule breakdown. I think it got up to 9 pages this time, which is a record. So it's fun to write. It's, as we said earlier, it's all the stuff we're thinking about in the off season. So something I'm proud of and something I'm, excited to do every week coming out of games. So this one really, sets the stage for the season, talks through all the stuff I'm thinking about leading up to it and all the stuff we've been talking about. So excited to provide that to our members today, and definitely going to be something weekly that I know is a foundation of this episode, kind of just talking through the games and what our takeaways were from that. So just encourage readers to check it out and let me know your thoughts.
Yeah, it's a very fun read. Let's start with the depth chart. I don't think you need to go through the entire too deep. We've done that kind of a little bit on the podcast already, but there are a couple of notable areas on there where I think things are still a little bit up in the air going into Saturday.
Yeah, I think we talked, last week, obviously, at receiver. I know receiver and defensive back has obviously been the hot topics in the Oregon fan base, and naturally those are the two positions I think we probably feel least confident in. I think the one piece we're most confident in is there's going to be a lot of rotation, and there's going to be a lot of bodies in both positions. But for my, final prediction per se, I think DeCorian Moore is one of those guys at receiver. I think from all indications, Gary Bryant Jr. has won that, slot position. And that third spot, for me is probably coming down to Kyle Casper, Malik Benson. Is that where your vibe heads at these days? Yeah,
but I also still feel like Jeremiah McClellan can get in there. Like by week 5 or week 6, I was like, we could be looking back like, oh, of course he's in there. So there's so many guys that are going for that spot, I believe.
Yeah, and I think it'll come down to, obviously, there's certain guys' skill sets, inside, outside. That's a big factor in some of these guys. I know there's some flex. I think probably Jeremiah is the kind of guy that can probably see time inside, outside. But I think for the most part, a lot of these other guys on the roster probably fit better in or out. So I would just remind fans, and it's going to come up again when we talk about the DBs, like just because, Don Essig announced a certain guy there doesn't mean that's going to be the guy. And just because the first play has this guy doesn't mean that's going to be the guy. I think there's a lot more that goes into this stuff. And, there's seniority, there's team leaders, there's motivational tactics behind some of this stuff. I think Dan is a master at getting the most out of his players. And so I think that let's read into who's, getting the first play against Penn State rather than Saturday.
Well, and also, just like basketball, I'm almost more interested in the closing 5 and who this team is going to in a tight third or fourth quarter and leaning on the end rather than the first lineup out there on a Saturday against all due respect, an FCS team. So what about the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I think that the defensive line is pretty set in terms of the rotation that we're looking at. You just have such a multitude of bodies, both inside and outside, that I'm really excited to watch. I'm curious who rises to the top at that defensive tackle spot alongside Amari Washington. That's going to be one I'm looking forward to tracking. I know Tion Gray is a guy that probably was going to see reps last year until he got banged up. So he's a guy I'm really excited to watch, and I know you couple that alongside Bear, Terrence Green, some other guys. I think you have bodies inside. It's just a matter of seeing what happens when the lights come on. Obviously, DB is the spot. That's the one that we're all excited to watch. That's the one that we're all looking forward to who's going to be out there. But once again, I would be very surprised if the guys who run out there first on Saturday are the guys who run out there in the biggest moments 5 weeks from now. So I think there's just going to be a lot of fluidity within that position. And I'm just excited to watch the talent there. Heart goes out to some of the guys we've had in that room, 5'10", 5'11" dudes, but I'm just excited to see some 6 foot and above, 6'2", 6'3", rangy dudes. I'm fired up for it.
Yeah, it's a really good place to be in for this coaching staff to be like, all right, we have 7 guys that we probably feel are above the line that can really play great football for us. Let's take these first 4 games and just see who the best is and just kind of let them weed themselves out. So, yeah, I think those are the 2 positions that I'm most excited to watch on Saturday. You went through who you think the biggest breakout players are going to be this year for Oregon. Who do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I'll remind listeners this column is intended for, the common Oregon fan, and so I think that some people may scoff at my answers, but we're not all 24/7 message board members and following recruiting till the end. So I listed Kenyon Sadiq, Decorian Moore, and Mari Washington as those people. I know some of those are household names depending on how closely you follow things, but I think there's a very good chance that one of two or two of Amari and Sadiq find themselves in the first round this year, honestly. I think Oregon fans shouldn't expect either to come back, given the years I expect them to have. Given that, I mean, those are two natural names to pop and explode, and I think you saw Kenyon, later down in the year. But just the things coming out of camp about him, I know you've heard the same when it comes to Sadiq. I mean, the priority just to get him the ball, the versatility he provides. I think that when we have questions at wide receiver, the one thing we don't question is like that guy could split out anytime and be one of our wide receivers.
Yeah, a really good one too. I'm going to go ahead and pander to those diehard listeners and say that I expect Brandon Finney and Deer Hill to be my two breakouts, which probably the average fan does not know at all. But if if you're with us on Ducks Rising and you're part of those A+ ball chats every day, you know exactly what I'm talking about. These guys, both true freshmen, seem like they are going to pop anytime. Those are two guys that there's a million guys we can't wait to watch on Saturday, but those two are near the top of the list for me.
And I think for them, I think this class that came in this year is going to go down as an all-timer in terms of the talent. It's really just a question of how quickly can they truly get up to game speed, game assignment, lights come on. This is, Oklahoma State. Maybe we're in a game in the second, third quarter, and do you know your assignment? Can you execute? Can you block? These type of things. So I think there's no question within the fan base, the staff, everyone around that Finney, Offord, Hill, all these guys are talent-wise above that line you speak of. I think the question is going to be is does the coaching staff trust them to know their assignment, do their job, and then when they're given that opportunity, some guys rise to the occasion, others aren't quite ready for it, and that's fine, but you'll learn quickly.
Yep. With so much new on the roster, so many unknowns, we obviously have questions. What are the biggest questions that you want to have answered going into this year in general?
I mean, me and you have talked about how confident we are about Dante Moore. We've talked about how confident we are in the offensive line transfers. But I'm not ready to just go full homer mode and say that that question has been answered. So anytime you're breaking in 4 out of 5 new starters on the offensive line and a new quarterback, I think it's fair to say that's a question. Is it a question I'd bet on Oregon being good at? Yep. But it's a question nonetheless, and I think you saw early in last season continuity issues along the offensive line, a little bit of a slow start. I think there's no doubt Alik Terry, Will Stein, all the way up to Dan Lanning are talking about that Idaho game last year and talking about that Boise game. I know there's a feeling hey, we skirted by there. That could have been a lot worse ultimately. So I got to imagine that's been a motivation piece. I know the offensive line was dealing with injuries, and that was some of it last year. As far as we know, they're healthy, which is a huge piece. But for me, first and foremost, that's got to be question number one when we're looking at the offense.
Yeah, I went back and looked at some stats from the Idaho game earlier today. 2.9 yards per carry and 106 total rushing yards. Oof. That's really, really tough. So, yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing, at least going into this weekend, is how quickly can that offensive line gel? You've said a million times. What does this offensive line look like by week 5? That's all that really matters. I think they've got the talent to get through those first 4 games, but, come game 5, they need to really be ready. Are there any other questions you had?
I think how the DB room will sort out is an interesting one for sure. I think that there's been some questions around run defense as well. I think who's going to be those D tackles that step up and play. It's just such an interesting year, especially defensively, because we universally believe in the talent and believe in the guys. But I know Bud Elliott and all these national guys have been talking about hey, this is the year that these young guns are actually playing. We've kind of recruited over them in the portal in the past, but we need 4 guys to step up on the interior and be ready to play. We need a couple guys to step up on the edge and be ready to play. We need Devin Jackson a little banged up. We need 3 linebackers that we haven't seen play before, ready to step up and really play real game reps. So I think it's not so much a question specifically about certain position or certain guys. I'm just generally wondering, like, who are going to be those guys? Who's going to be the defense going into the fourth quarter at Penn State?
Yeah,
who's going to be out?
I think that's a very fair question. Lastly, you went through game by game and gave your score predictions for each and your overall record predictions for the whole season. Lay it on me.
Yeah, I got to hear where you're at after this.
Okay.
But it's so tough, man, because I dealt with this last year too. So I predicted Oregon 11-1 last year, and I'm going through the schedule, and I really don't see a loss in my mind. So I ended up just picking them to lose at Michigan, which I felt like an idiot after. But I'm like, I'm not picking them to lose at Autzen. I thought they were going to beat Ohio State at home. That obviously was a tight game. But so I find myself in the same spot this year. Like, I just can't quite believe in Penn State. Something about Franklin just always, like, I'm just not ready to get there. Nope. I like the time of that game. I like how it sets up. I honestly like that they have a bye before us. They're not going to break a sweat until they play us. I mean, you think our schedule's soft? Theirs is beyond soft. So I kind of like that way that game shapes up. I ended up predicting us to be 11-1. I feel like I can't go full homer mode and go 12-0. The loss for me was at Penn State by 3. But if you ask me today, gun to my head, Oregon versus Penn State, I'm taking Oregon. So it's, you go through those things and it's just tough. Like, I'm not picking us to lose at Washington. You kidding me?
No, definitely not. Yeah, it's really hard not to be a homer when you cover the Ducks and when you're, from Oregon, because, like, they're pretty good most of the time. And, like, last year I predicted 12-0, and I was like, wow, I feel like an idiot doing this because, of course, they're not going to go 12-0 in their first year in the Big Ten, and then they went 13-0. So, yeah, I've got them exactly the same as you, 11-1 this year. I think it's like a 6-point loss or something to Penn State, and that's just kind of, you think about that down the road, and it's a give respect to the team and the environment more than anything. But, I think their floor, you said in your piece, I think there's no reason this team should be, worse than 10-2. Some people are saying 9-3. It's like, I just don't see that. A lot would have to go wrong for that to happen, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to shake out how a couple of these road games are going to, ultimately play out. What we know is, 1 to 2 at least of these road games between Iowa, Washington, and Penn State is probably going to be a tight game, just like Wisconsin was last year in the fourth quarter. And, like, do you trust the staff to, pull through? Do you trust the team to pull through? Like, I'll take us against Iowa or Washington in the fourth quarter any day. Penn State's obviously a toss-up. I know there's a lot. I've seen a lot of people in the Duck sphere, like, picking us to lose against Indiana at home, saying USC is going to be tight. I actually, like, the way the schedule shakes out, and you can check out my score predictions, I think Minnesota might be the tightest home game. Mm-hmm. Just because the way things shake out, Friday night, coming off what I think will be like a huge high of USC. So, I don't know. I feel like Autzen is slowly getting back, and last season was huge to, like, true home environment Autzen. And you just know that place is going to be jazzed up for USC. I don't know. I'm inclined to trust we're going.
I'm also kind of worried about that. Not worried. That's the wrong word, but I'm aware of that Rutgers game. Like, that's a long trip. I believe that's after Indiana too, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
But that's one of those where it's like it's not getting mentioned, but it's a tough game after playing Penn State and Indiana in 2 of 3 weeks. So it's one I'm aware of. Let's wrap up the takeaway talk for the day and get into our Montana State preview. Before we do that, though, Travis, can you tell me about Backer a little bit?
Yeah, just a reminder to all Duck fans out there that this podcast is sponsored by Backer. Backer is a new outerwear company founded by an Oregon alum, combining high-performance materials from the outdoor industry with a sleek Oregon look. As someone who grew up in Eugene, I know the value of high-end apparel on football Saturdays, summer hikes, winter trips to the mountain. This gear checks every box. Encourage all Duck fans to check out their amazing Oregon jackets, hoodies, hats, and more at Backer. That's BCKR.com. Use the code RISINGFREE for free expedited shipping. And with that code, 10% of all orders will go back to Ducks Rising. So check out Backer today.
All right, let's dive into Saturday's action. Montana State FCS team, yes, but they are not just any FCS team, right?
Number 2 in the preseason rankings.
Yep.
They lost a lot off their roster last year, but that's the type of team that like reloads culturally, like as good as it gets. I mean, I love watching that level of football. Actually, I'm always tuned into like the FCS playoffs. The Brawl of the Wild up there, Montana versus Montana State. So I've just got a ton of respect for that program, the type of players they churn out. I mean, this is not. I know the line's 27, 26. We'll talk about that a little later, but this is no layup, and they're the type of team that just like foundationally and schematically is just like fundamental, and they'll test you and just like make sure you're dialed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've got back-to-back appearances in the FCS championship game. According to Bill Connolly's SP Plus at ESPN, Montana State would be the number 80 team in the FBS if they were included in our rankings. For reference, Oregon State is number 75 on the SP Plus, and Stanford is number 84. So it's kind of that level of team that you're going into.
Tough blow for Stanford.
I know, right?
And what's crazy is their Montana State starter quarterback played at Stanford when I'm pretty sure a couple of years ago when we played them. So yeah, I mean, anytime you got a quarterback who can run around and make plays, I think last name's Lamson. He can, he's a dual threat guy. We can all mock Stanford. You don't get a scholarship offer to play quarterback at Stanford unless you've got some talent. So I think he'll test us. He'll test that I know we've had trouble in years past. I think all of us Oregon fans are scarred from the running quarterback, that we almost sacked 6 times, and before you know it, he's running for first downs like crazy in a game like this. So I think this is the type of guy that'll test the defense and test a young defense early of like, are you playing sound assignment football? In keeping this guy, make him win one-on-one matchups against the DBs we've talked up all season. If they're going to do that, credit to them.
Yeah, I looked it up earlier. These are numbers off the top of my head, but when he was with Stanford playing us, I believe he was 11 for 20 for like 100-something yards, and then had 32 rushing yards on 22 attempts. So yes, he gets out in there and runs a lot. I know it's not a great yards per carry, but he's willing to get out there. But that kind of segues into this. This is a very, very run-heavy team. Last year, they threw about 20 passes per game and ran about 45 times per game. They have a new offensive coordinator and play caller this year. They've got a new quarterback, and they lost their top running back to New Mexico in the transfer portal. They do still have a lot of depth at the running back position, though. They've got a preseason All-American coming back who had, I think, over 1,000 yards. They kind of pass the ball a little bit. They've got a really good wide receiver in Taco, I think Dowler, I believe his name is. But still, they're going to test Oregon's rushing defense, I think, a lot early on, which I'm actually, excited to see. I think it's good that you get that test early on.
Yeah, and that's, I know there's been a lot of chatter. We talked about it last week with the rush defense and questions in there. I think it's a perfect game, for that interior defensive line, those edges to step up and be like, hey, I'm that dude. I mean, you lose a lot of talent in the interior. We've talked through those names, who's going to be the guy to step up and, take the lead next to Washington. And then on the edge, just as importantly, I mean, you saw with Jordan Birch being banged up throughout last year, we struggled to defend the run, especially on the edges. I mean, obviously against Ohio State, but Penn State the week before that, and there were some other games in there that was definitely a concern. So I think obviously it starts with Mateo and Tatum, but down the line, I think that's one piece. The ability to just set the edge, push things inside, that's a huge kind of under-discussed factor that Birch was so good at, but you could see kind of deteriorate as the year went on last year.
Defensively, I think Montana State's I would say, solid team. They're pretty good in the front seven. They've got a lot of returning defensive linemen who are, I believe, preseason All-American, and then a couple of great linebackers as well. They lost their entire starting secondary, which, Oregon fans know what that feels like. They're not quite returning there. They're not replacing them with as much talent as Oregon is. But I think this is a game where Oregon could pick on the secondary and throw the ball if they want to. I still feel like they'll try and run the ball a lot and just kind of keep the playbook rather limited. But I do think they could have some success through the air.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we talked earlier about the struggles against Idaho last year, and I think the last thing Stein, Dan, all those guys want this game is to, have Dante Moore come out and be constantly in 2nd and 8, 3rd and 9, situations. So I think the efficiency run game and just like establishing that early to me is a huge piece of that. And I have to assume that's a big piece of the game plan, not only for just what it says coming off the last year and just like, taking those concerns and putting them to bed right away. But I think, Dante, for all intents and purposes, a first-time starter, hasn't started a game, hasn't played like real game reps in a long time. I think easing him into the game a little bit, establishing the run early, get him some play action shots. But like you said, I mean, there's no reason why we shouldn't have one-on-one battles on the outside. And, even though there are questions about the wide receiver room, I'm still going to take our guys against theirs. There's still, a huge talent mismatch that we can exploit.
Let's get into some game predictions. Who are, we're going to go through 3 Ducks that we think really need to step up for, I would say, for this game to be a blowout, because I think Oregon's going to win this game. They could play a bad game and I think still win this game. But in order for Oregon to cover that point spread, who are 3 Ducks who you think need to step up?
Yeah. You want to just alternate here?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. I think I'll cheat a little bit. I just think the tackles on offense to start. I think that, how comfortable Harkey and World are, assuming those are going to be the guys. I know Janoris Wilson has made a little push there, and I think that he's had a big offseason, big developmental guy, and I think you'll see him out there a good chunk, which is a huge backup piece for us. But how quickly are those guys going to be up to speed? Like, how quickly can we truly dominate in the run game like we talked about?
Yeah, my guy would be Amari Washington. Just, trying to stop that run and just muddy up the defensive line. Just to get the trenches really dirty. Make sure that they're not running all over you, because we know they've got the talent there. I think that you just need the number one focus going to this game is stopping the run.
Yeah, I think it's one of those games that's almost like cultural and mental. And I think having those leaders step up, I mean, it's the same reason I think about a guy I think Noah Whittington's a big one, just because you can tell throughout the fall, that guy's got the heart. That guy's such a vocal leader amongst the team, and that guy fires people up. I mean, I think about that run against Illinois last year. It was Noah's run of hey, I'm back. And just what that did and galvanized the team in that respect. So I think you get in a game like this and you just need those dudes who have been around the block a little bit, just step up, show you the way. Everyone's feeling a little jittery at the start. Let's get this game in hand early. So I think Noah's going to be out there early and often. I know there's been some chatter about will he be the starter, will he not? One way or the other, I think that guy's going to get a lot of carries. I think that's the kind of guy that can set the tone of hey, we mean business. We need to handle our business. Come out here, get the starters out, avoid any injuries, and on to the next week.
Yeah, I think in order for this game to be a blowout, I would say I want someone like Malik Benson to step up, because I just think getting that deep threat on offense and just kind of taking the top off the defense, let Dante Moore air it out a little bit, get some of those, 40, 50, 60-yard plays, I think would be really crucial. And that's so demoralizing for a defense. Just give that up. You may have a lot of, maybe really amped up coming into Autzen, but then that happens, you're oh, we are an FCS team. We are playing against the number 7 team in the nation. Okay, maybe we don't belong in this field.
Yeah. I think my last one would be Blake Purchase, and what I'm thinking here is I bet Oregon's going to allocate some resources to the run game. I bet we're going to say, hey, we're stopping the run. You guys go win some one-on-one matchups. I think we're probably going to see a lot of 2nd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 11, 2nd and 7 situations. And I think Purchase just offers something off the edge that those other guys don't in terms of his just speed and power and twitchiness. And so I think we're going to be in a lot of situations where he can just passing down, pin his ears back and rush the passer. I wouldn't be surprised to see that guy get a sack or 2 on Saturday.
I'm going to go a little bit off the board for my 3rd one, but in order for Oregon to keep a blowout and cover the spread, I'm going to say Austin Novosad. Because we can talk about Dante Moore all we want. He can build the lead, but you got to have somewhere to keep the lead. And if we get into the second half and you got a 30-point lead, Austin's got to play a clean game and keep scoring. I know that they may lay off the gas a little bit, not be running a lot of things, but he's got to run that show still. And I think it'll be a great opportunity for him to show that it should be in this conversation. Maybe not, as the starter, but as one of the preeminent quarterbacks and, one of the best backups in the nation.
Yeah, and I mean, 2 things with that. I think that one, how many years going back have we been frustrated when the Ducks would bring in their backup and he just hand off the ball 50 times to end a game and never get real reps? So I love that Dan and this staff actually let the guy throw and run the offense. You saw it with Dante last year, you saw it with other guys. And then, I mean, credit to Autzen. I mean, I'm fired up to watch him. I mean, I think along those same veins, there's been 5, 6, 7 years out of the last 10 where the backup comes in. I'm like, okay, that's my cue to head on home. But like now I'm fired up to watch him. I'm fired up to watch him throw to these backups. I'm fired up to see him. I mean, that guy epitomizes everything that's right about the position, Oregon, people, just the best dude. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in college athletics these days. Like, he stands for the right things, and we can win a lot of games with him. And I know the staff believes that they need to have him ready, and so I think they're going to let him go out there and run a real offense and play with the ones and throw to some of these receivers, and I'm fired up to watch it.
Yeah, I think he's definitely earned that at this point with how loyal he's been. I mean, it would have been easy for him to leave at any point, but he's stayed true, so I agree. We talked about questions a little bit earlier, just for the season in general, but I'm curious, going into this game specifically, what's one question that you really just want answered?
I think it's just how disciplined and solid can we defend the run game. I think this run game is going to test you. I think that anytime you have a dual threat guy back there, you have to allocate an extra to the game. I think that guy's going to test your zone read ability. That guy's going to test your, discipline in the pocket. So I'm just excited to watch the defensive line specifically. How many resources we need to allocate to stopping the run game, I'm curious of that. I assume early on it may be a few extra, but man, when you can only rush 4, that changes the dynamic of football in so many ways. So especially as the season goes along, like, that is a huge advantage. So I just want to see how these guys along the defensive line are developing, how they look, who's going to start alongside Amari Washington. How much is Aiden Breland going to play? That's like a question I keep thinking on and on about. I keep watching
where
his
is he going to play?
Totally. Just a total freak athlete. I mean, some of these stories coming out on him. So just run defense in general, but like, who are those guys going to be? I mean, Elijah Rushing, like, how many schools is that guy not starting for right now? And you saw him shouted out in one of these fall camp videos. Everything you've heard come to that guy is change his body, developing 6'6" freak athletes at the edge. So that's just a group I can't wait to watch. But I think the ultimate question is like, how well are we going to be able to defend the run?
Yeah, I'm going to go to the wide receivers, and not just to see who the starting 3 are, but I want to see what the hierarchy is. I want to see, who's 5, who's 6, who's even down the line, who's 7 there. So we feel like we have a pretty good sense of probably the top 3 or 4 guys. I just want to see like what that whole depth looks like and really how far down the line they feel comfortable going, because we know that under Junior Adams, they didn't rotate a ton. I think that Ross Douglas likes to rotate a little bit more. So I'm just curious. There's a lot of dudes there. I just want to see who is able to actually stand out on Saturday and in a real game, go out and play.
I'm so curious to see, like, is Cooper Perry going to like play in like real minutes, or is he going to just play like with 4 minutes left? Or is we've seen this in years past with Oregon where like they believe in a freshman and they think he might need to play later in the year, possibly though maintaining his red shirt, and like, do you hold him out fully knowing like, hey, there's been some injuries and some dings to that room. So yeah, I'm so curious how it's going to shake out and what that hierarchy is going to look like.
Yeah, that's very true. All right, one bold prediction for the game before we get out of here and move on to the next segment.
Gary Bryant leads the team in catches.
Wow, okay. That was very similar to mine, but please tell me why.
I think you can tell a lot about who the coaches believe in, I think, in how they talk about players, who they're sending out to the media. I know Gary's been very available lately, and you can tell he's just like a consistent, respected member of the team. I know he's battled a ton of injuries. Yeah, a ton of success at this level. I think he's going to start in the slot, and they're going to move him around a lot. And I just think he's going to probably see the most reps out there Saturday. And I also think at the same time, like, they're going to find a lot of creative ways to get him the ball, bubble screens. he had so much success at USC, fades out of the slot, one-on-one matchups. I think he's going to have a lot of advantages, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him, in that 6 to 8 catch range.
I'm going to have to pivot now because I was going to do something on Malik Benson, just leading all receivers. No, I'm going to go to the defense side of the ball. I got another good one. Jerry Mixon leads the team in tackles.
Okay.
I think he's going to have, I want to say double digit. I think with Devin Jackson probably not playing in this game, just being dinged up. We don't know. We'll see. I think he's probably going to get the start next to Bryce. But he's also still a younger guy that needs the reps, I think, and see a lot of game action. They're not going to try and get him out early on. I think he can have one of those, like, Justin Flo type games from his first time here. That was so much fun. I think he had, like, 14.
I saw Justin Flo running around like crazy for UNLV last week. I was like, oh, my gosh, that guy.
Is he? He's not Arizona anymore, is he? Yeah, he's UNLV.
No, he was starting at linebacker there, and still's got his little shoulder pad up there, and was classic Justin Flo would make a crazy play because he's his traits are still there, and then the next play he'd be in the wrong spot by 20 yards. So
have a personal foul penalty for 15 yards.
Yeah,
that dude. I've always said.
They've got his perfect mentor. They brought in Burfict, remember, from ASU, to be his linebacker coach. So there you go. That's the name I always thought of when I watched Flo play. So I still remember Burfict trying to decapitate Mariota a couple times. I hated that dude.
I've always said that Flo is a walking embodiment of like a human Adderall pill. Like just so ready to go and just hit something, but has no idea where he's going. So hope it all works out.
No, I like the Mixon pick a lot. I think that would honestly be my choice on defense. That'd be my preferred choice on defense. I know people always love to predict like, oh, Dylan Thienemann's a tackling machine. Like, I'd rather not my safeties making all their tackles. Yeah. Let's go ahead and have the linebackers do that, please. So, I think Jerry's going to get a lot of run out there, and I'm excited to watch him. I'm excited to watch the guys below him.
Yeah, I think so as well. All right, let's talk about game flow. We want to do this, going forward throughout the season as a way to talk about how we think the game is going to go. For this one, it's not so much of a, what does Oregon need to do to win, but like we said earlier, what do they need to do to make this a blowout and cover that spread? So I'll ask you this. Oregon wins in a blowout if they do what on Saturday?
Run the ball early and efficiently, I think. I mentioned it earlier. I think the last thing you want to do is just have Dante start off his season by being an obvious passing downs. Montana State can pin their ears back and rush, and you're in a passing situation. So I think if we can come out, establish the run early. Obviously, we mentioned it earlier. You don't want to show much in games like this, so I don't think we're going to be super deep in the bag, but I think we both agree. I mean, Oregon should be able to come out and just play, normal power, counter, whatever their go-to runs are, and be able to, be 4 to 6 yards a carry minimum. So I think as long as the Ducks do that, that'll open up those opportunities. You say Malik Benson, Gary Bryant, Dak Moore down the field. If we're in a situation where we've established that, we can run with success.
See, I'm going to flip that on you. I'm going to say that they win in a blowout if they're able to stop the run. I mean, that's the one thing I'm focused on. I have zero concerns about this offense going out there and putting up 35, 42 plus points, like relatively easily. But if they can't really stop the run and they let up 17, 20 points, like, all right, then you get into a point where it's okay. The scoreboard doesn't look as pretty as you want it to. But if that defensive line, the interior defensive line in particular, is as good as we think it can be, and they can hold down, I think his name's Andrew Jones, the Montana State running back, whoever his name is. I'm sorry for getting it wrong if that is wrong. But if they can limit him, I think that they'll have a pretty easy time covering the spread. Conversely, if Oregon is in a close game in the second half, then what happened?
I mean, it's easy to obviously just like flip our scenarios. I think that I love talking like game flow and game situations, and I think it's a lot more useful in a, road game or a big time game. So I think that conversation is a little bit difficult week to week, but I think it's, like you said, I think it's Montana State running the ball and with success. They're obviously going to try to hold the ball. I wouldn't be surprised if they're, sucking down the play clock best they can, playing ball control offense. And then I think you it's natural. The later these games stay close, the more, tighter a home team gets, who's a huge favorite. That's just natural. And what I'm curious to watch is how much Dan just kind of tries to get us out of there healthy. If a game turns into something like this. You saw that last year. You saw it at Purdue. You saw it with Michigan State at home where, the game was in control. We're up by 14. We're up by 17. Like, degenerates like me are stressing. We're like, Jesus, can we just, get this game over with? But, Dan showed, he's just like, long season. I'm just going to, suck the air out. I'm fine. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious if it's going to go one way or the other. It's why that number is interesting, because I could see us getting to 31-7 and just being like, yep, we're good.
See, the thing that, and again, I'll say it doesn't worry me, but I'm just aware of the possibility of it being something that we're talking about next week as something that needs to fix, is the offensive line. And the fact that they may not gel in week one playing together. Shocker, it's a very hard position to play with 5 guys having to do the same thing all together. So I think that's one thing that, could make this a closer game than we think it should be, is if they have some miscommunications up front and they struggle a little bit on pass pro, they struggle to get their run blocking together. I think pass pro is probably more of the concern there because these guys are all very, very good run blockers. But that's just one thing. And when you're dealing with a quarterback who has not started games at Oregon and has not started games in a couple of years and a lot of new transfers, that's something that, definitely could happen. I don't think it will happen. I think the odds are against it. But if this is a close game, I think that would probably be a reason why.
Yeah, and I think that you feel, the longer and longer that I just remember back to the Idaho game last year and, couple sacks, you can feel the crowd, feel the tension in the crowd. You can hear the whispers and so yeah, I mean, as much as I think from what we can tell, this Oregon staff does an amazing job in fall camp of really practicing real football. I know we used to mock USC for never tackling throughout practice and different things. That's not Oregon. I mean, you've seen in some of these clips coming out that 3-on-2 perimeter drill that we saw some clips from last week. I mean, that's real football. And there are pros and cons to it. I mean, there's some guys dinged up because of it, but that's the calculus that this staff has made. But it's still going to be different when you get out there. No matter what, this 5's got to get out there and show hey, we've got our calls down. Hey, we've got our assignments down. Some of these smaller schools, it's almost it's different as an offensive line because you're not going against big 300-pound twitchy, beefy guys. You're going against smaller. I remember Washington State used to have a ton of guys like this that were undersized guys, but had a ton of success because I think they just didn't fit the norm in that way. So, I don't expect us to come out and score 7 touchdowns in the first 7 drives, but I could see it taking a drive or 2.
Yeah, it's think about Shaq playing Raymond Felton 1-on-1. Raymond Felton's going to score a couple times just because he's a different body type. He's not used to banging in the post with him. That was that just popped into my mind.
Ray Felton always still gets booed by the Portland fans every time he comes back here. Every time.
All right, let's talk betting line a little bit. We've mentioned it. Oregon minus 27.5. The over/unders at 56.5. Are you just? I mean, I haven't talked to you about betting, I think, ever before. Do you ever put wagers down on these games?
So, I had a friend a long time back, and I know our producer, shout out to Will, does this occasionally himself, who bets $100 on the money line of our opponent every week. And his mindset is, if Oregon wins, I'm happy. I don't give a crap about $100. But if they lose, I've got a nice dinner to go to drown my sorrows in. So I've been so close to doing that so many times, but I've never actually taken the plunge. So no, I've never bet on an Oregon game.
Okay. I've definitely bet on an Oregon game when I thought I had a really good I've got a bad rap in my group chat with friends because I'm always oh yeah, man, I know the inside stuff. Bet this a lock. It always ends up not being a lock. So don't listen to me. Definitely, as I say to all the people listening to me right now. But this game minus 27.5. What are you thinking?
We've talked about the 2 different game flows. I can see the 37, 31-7 game flow that we talked about where Oregon takes the air out of the ball. But I think that's a scenario in which the Ducks are not ready to play in some respect, or dealing with some mistakes, dealing with some kinks. And I'm just gonna rely on the fact that last season was an anomaly. Last season was a teaching point. I think they come out, handle business, put Montana State away, and I think they cover that spread.
Yeah, I hope that's what happens. In all honesty, I'm staying away from this game. I would not bet this. Just such a new team, such a big number. Like, I have no confidence either way. If you're to put a gun to my head, I would honestly say take Montana State plus the 27.5. I just cannot get that Idaho game out of my mind last year. 21-14 final. I don't know what they were favored going into that game. It was probably around this number. Until I see them blow out a team like this, especially with a new roster, I'm just going to try and play it a little bit safe. So, like I said, all honesty, I'm staying away. But if I had to pick, I'd say plus the 27.5.
I think what gives me optimism, and my score prediction, I was just pulling it up on the takeaways, was 42-10. I think what gives me optimism is this roster is different than last year in terms of not a lot of known commodities. And so I think last year where it made sense to, not that this happened against Idaho, where it made sense in certain games, like, hey, we know what we have. Let's just get out of here, get to the next week. Like, I think Saturday, you've got a ton of guys who like need to prove a point, who are fighting for a position. I don't think that was the case last year. So I think the mindset coming in, not only staff-wise, but I think a lot of these players is like, heck, I don't care if this game's in the bag. Like, I got to go earn myself a spot for these games that are coming up. So I don't know.
You're swaying me a little bit. I didn't think about it that way. There's a lot of, it's just such a young team that like, they don't know better than to like protect themselves and get out of there. Dan's going to try and get them out of there. But my original score prediction was 35-13. Still like a very handy win. Like, you know, it's not close. I still think that's, if I could do math right, yeah, that's not covering the spread. So
we'll get a Novosad to Perry touchdown to cover the spread. Fourth quarter. There you go.
Man, that would be a lot of fun. Yeah. All right, this final segment before our Autzen Airwaves to close us out. We're calling it "What Are You Watching?" This is a massive weekend in college football. I think it's better than most of the week ones we've had in recent memory. We've got some monster games. For this segment throughout the year, we're going to go and just highlight a few games that we will have our eyes on throughout the weekend. Let's go back and forth kind of in like a draft form. What's the first game that you'll be sure to tuning into this weekend?
I'm actually with, shout out to Andy and Ari who drafted this number one. I'm actually more excited for Clemson LSU than the one you're going to pick in a second.
I was gonna be happy picking that one. The other one.
I just like love the storylines of this game. It's hard for me because it's hard because I just despise both coaches. And we'll get to that with the Sunday game as well. It's hard when these games are like two programs I just cannot stand, and so I have to kind of hate watch it on both sides. But I find myself hating Brian Kelly a little more these days. I've got my gripes with Dabo, but I'm ready for another Brian Kelly table slam after what, like they're like fifth or sixth straight season opening loss. I just think this game is going to be awesome. Like, night game at Clemson. You know the LSU fans are going to travel. I think the environment's going to be great. I am totally a sucker for an environment, and so when you get a night game at a place like that, I'm just fired up to watch.
Well, and it's shout out to the Solid Verbal with Dan Rubenstein. They were calling it the Death Valley Bowl because both these teams play in Death Valley. And I believe that, I don't have his record in front of me, but Dabo is not great in season opening games either, like with Brian Kelly. So both of these teams are really needing a win. The obvious pick for me is Texas against Ohio State, 9 a.m. on Saturday. Like, that's the premier game of the weekend. It's probably one of the best, week one games we've had in a long time. You got two new/newish starting quarterbacks with Arch Manning and Julian Sayin. Obviously defending national champions with Ohio State. Like, that's just going to be a great game. But I think that the Clemson LSU game is better because I think that either Texas or Ohio State will still be one of the leaders for the championship conversation, even if they lose. Whereas LSU or Clemson loses, then it's like, all right, yeah, you may make it back into the playoffs, but they're not really talked about in that championship tier anymore, whereas the winner probably will be.
Yeah, it's always like the stakes of it to me determine the game, and I feel like that's, as I feel like if you're Texas or Ohio State and you lose that game by 3,
You're
I
fine.
don't think any message board is melting down. Whereas that LSU Clemson, the loser of that game, I'm ready for some message board geniuses. I'm ready to get all the fan takes out there.
All right, your next game.
Once again, I'll do some coach or some program hate watching. I mean, I think Sunday night, Miami, Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I have this like interesting relationship with Mario Cristobal. I feel like I have to always remind myself of like what he did at Oregon and how grateful, I think the infrastructure he built here was huge. I know players love him. I just like the way that ended was just so sour for me that it just left like a bad taste in my mouth. I think just that's the Oregon homer in me. So I'm just excited. I have a lot of respect for Marcus Freeman. I feel like my hatred of Notre Dame has kind of dissipated throughout the years. Like I don't even have a reason anymore to dislike him. I actually have a lot of respect for that program. So I know, God, I was watching something today where all 4 guys picked Miami, which surprised me. I was like, heck, I think Notre Dame's going to go in there, run the ball on him.
Seen Mario Cristobal coach?
Yeah. Give me another Mario coaching melt. Melt. Give me a timeout before the season again. God, I would love that.
Yeah, you said that about it, like when he left, that sour taste. Like I was honestly in the camp when he left that like, yeah, man, I don't blame him. Like, I was right away in that mindset of like, he's okay. Like, we shouldn't be mad. He's doing this for his family. Like, if I was in his position, I'd do the same thing. But then over the years, it's been just like so easy to be like, yeah, like look at what we have now. I'm so glad he left, and just like that part of the fandom comes up. So I think I root for him, but I also revel in all of the miscues that he goes through every year. And honestly, as someone who writes about the Ducks, like writing about Mario Cristobal miscues equals massive page views because fans just love to hate watch it so much. So I'm definitely a fan of that.
It's just so hard because, like, I really try to think through why that left a sour taste and the way it went about. And, it's clear that players kind of knew where things were trending. And I don't think it's a secret why we melted down against Utah twice. But, like, it's the system. I mean, the college football system is just brutal, and it just like it makes it so these type of things have to stay under the table and agents pivoting, but we all know, but Mario can't say anything. So like the more, I try to remind myself, I actually don't hate him, and I understand completely, like you said, why he made his decision. It was just the way it went about it, and maybe it's just the salty in me that I went to both of those Utah games and spent thousands of dollars to have to watch both of those games.
Yeah, well, and we'd just been spurned before. The whole Oregon program had been spurned before by Taggart. And so for him to say the things like, oh, no, this isn't happening, and then to just do it like 12 hours later, it's not a shock. I think everyone was upset. My game, I'm going to take Alabama and Florida State at 12:30 on Saturday. I don't really care about Florida State too much. I mean, I'm curious to see how they look after a 2-10 season, but I'm more curious to see Alabama because I think a lot of people are picking them to be one of the teams at the end of the year. I want to see Ty Simpson. I want to see what Kalen DeBoer does in his second year there. I mean, he's recruited at a high level again. Can he coach at a high level again after Washington? So I'm curious to see what they can do in a big. I mean, they should obviously win that game, but I just more want to see, kind of like with Oregon, what the pieces look like in a game that they should win by a lot.
Is that a neutral site game?
That's a good question. I actually have no idea.
I think. Oh no, it's in Tallahassee. Interesting. Yeah,
okay.
I'd like Florida State to test them a little bit. I think that'd make for some good TV.
Do you have any other like honorable mentions before we?
Yeah, have you seen the like late night window? I'm fired up for it.
No.
You got three Pac-12 fan in me, Cal at Oregon State, 7:30. Sign me up.
I had Utah and UCLA written down. That should be fun.
Yeah, perfect YouTube TV quad box at night. Utah, UCLA. Yes. I've got my Rams going into Seattle. Go Rams! So I love the late night window.
You a Colorado State fan?
Well, they're playing Washington, so of course.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I used to live basically on the Colorado State campus and go to all of their games. So I love Fort Collins.
As I tell my students every week, whoever the Huskies are playing that week, that's my second favorite team.
That's fair.
So I'll rock some Rams apparel. We'll see how it goes.
I also have Michigan versus New Mexico written down at 4:30 on Saturday. don't care about the outcome of the game. Just want to see Bryce Underwood and just see, after all the hype, just can't wait to see him. And then TCU versus North Carolina on Monday night. Like, how can you not tune in to Bill Belichick's first college game?
Yep. Yeah, and I'm just, honestly, I'm excited to watch, Nebraska, Cincinnati Thursday
night. Good Boise State game.
It's cool. I think that's the cool part of being in the Big Ten now is like, it just makes me interested in watching these teams that, Oregon, definitely the ones that Oregon's playing. Like, I want to watch Iowa and see this Gronowski guy. I want to see, like, is he good at, FBS football or FCS football? So, I am not above a Big Ten network.
No,
Big Ten versus FCS team. Sign me up.
And then we get, I think, Auburn Baylor on Friday night too. That should be a really fun one as well.
Yeah, that's actually a huge game, I think, for Auburn specifically.
What a great 5 days of football in front of us. We're so back. I'm so happy.
Let's go.
And it started what is that? The Boise State game's 2:30 tomorrow afternoon, I think.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, that'll be tough for you to watch, but
first day of class, but what's better than having a little football to get them to the teacher? So.
Yeah, rolling the TV.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Once again, we are going to close out the show and take some questions from our Ducks Rising subscribers on the Autzen Airwaves. If you're a subscriber on Ducks Rising, we ask you to write in with a testimonial about why you love being a member and a question for us to answer. What do we get this week?
Yeah, let's do it. First question from Wilson. Love being a part of Ducks Rising. I'm stationed overseas with a pretty massive time difference. Texas versus Ohio State is at 1 a.m. and Oregon plays at 5 a.m. for me. And one of the first things I do each day is scroll through all the channels and get caught up on all things Ducks. Super excited to see this page continue to grow. Can't recommend it enough. That's awesome, Wilson. Thank you for your service, of course. What is something you're looking for on each side of the ball in week one? What would you call for the first play on offense if you were the OC? I feel like we already talked about that first question a lot, so maybe we just focus on
I actually have an additional
play.
Answer, though. Lanning mentioned this earlier today when we talked to him. Just no missed tackles. Like, that's such a big thing early in the season because a lot of teams haven't been going live in practice that, you're going to miss a lot of tackles. He said that was one thing that he was really proud of in the Idaho game, that they had one missed tackle the entire day. So, while fans might have not considered that win a success, or a massive success, he walked away feeling pretty good about where the team was. So that's one thing I'm just definitely looking for in this game.
Okay, I like it. First play, I have my rational answer, then my irrational answer. My rational answer is just run the ball for 7 yards and get in a good situation. But the irrational answer is I just want Kenyon Sadiq to have the ball.
Right.
Get him matched up against somebody, come out in 12 personnel, get him matched up with a linebacker who's never seen a freak like him before, and let's see him or Jamari Johnson down the field.
I really like that answer. I'm going to say the same. It's always my first play when playing college football. 26. Read option. Just let Dante Moore read the defense. Maybe tuck it. Maybe show us that 21.5 mile per hour speed getting upfield. But I wanted to see him, take the offense into his hands and say, all right, I'm deciding what's going to happen here, and let it go from there.
Let's just make sure he slides.
Yes.
All right, we got two more quickly. Dre, I've given a testimonial before. Shout out to Dre again, but I'll continue to reiterate the Ducks Rising community is the best high-art duck group I've been a part of. Paying attention to any and every single piece of duck-related intel and discussing it just makes you feel at home. Ducks Rising to the moon. Question for the pod. How many 20-plus yard plays do you think the offense has on Saturday?
I'm going to say 4. I think 3 of them go to Malik Benson.
Ooh. 20-plus yard plays, so not just pass. I mean, if we don't break a couple 20-plus yard runs, I'm going to be
That's true.
I'm going to be a little frustrated. So I'm going to go with 3 on the ground, 4 through the air. Give me 7.
Okay. How many go to DR Hill?
At least one of them. At least
one.
He's gonna bring some juice. I think whenever he gets out there Saturday, you're gonna notice a little different burst back there when he's out there. So I gotta imagine he's one of them.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, last one question from JJ, as someone who's been a Ducks fan who moved away from the state of Oregon at a young age, I've joined every possible community where I can express my obsession as a Duck fan. Ducks Rising allows my obsession to support the team I'm so fanatical about and be part of the absolute best community that aligns with my passion towards the Ducks. My question for week 1 is, who is the one player from last year's team that you would want to add to this year's roster if you could, and why?
Oh, man.
Let's say no QB and no Tez to make it interesting.
First of all, shout out to JJ. That guy is a driving force in the community. Always has something to say, and I mean that in the best way too. Yes, that is a great question too. Who from last year's team would you like to add to this team? Man,
I'll go.
Yeah, go for it.
It's the highest drafted guy, but I think if you put last year's Harmon alongside Amari now, that's a pretty wicked front. I know those guys aren't. I mean, you honestly could say Jamari Caldwell too, because I think those guys blend a little better, Amari and him. But I think just one of those NFL D linemen just to set the tone with that group and give those young guys another chance to step up.
I'm really struggling with this. Because, like, on the offensive line, no. On the defensive line, you got it. Linebacker,
I think you could say Josh.
You could say
right?
Josh, but, like, you feel really good about Isaiah. Yeah. Safeties, no. Cornerbacks, no. Linebackers, maybe Bassa, but I feel pretty good. In a really strange answer, because he's semi on the team right now, I almost want to say Evan Stewart.
Yeah.
Just to be like, all right, give us that for sure deep threat that we know. I mean, I think Malik's going to be that guy, but give us the absolute for sure deep threat that we know.
I think, Jeff covered it. Other people have covered it. I think that everyone has a lot of belief in Isaiah World, but I do think, God, if you could have found a way to get Connerly back, that would have been pretty huge. I mean, I know all of us have been talking all offseason kind of like, hey, we think we're upgrading at 4 out of 5 spots, so if World can just give us X percentage of Connerly, the line's going to be better. But hey, if you're just going to give me Connerly, I'll go ahead and take that too.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right answer. Yeah.
That's a great question. Shout out to JJ.
That is. I'm going to be thinking about that one for a while. Just like, because I saw on Twitter, one of the Big Ten videos was asking all the coaches, like, what past player from their team would they put on, and Dan said Haloti Ngata. And it's like, I would love to see Dan coach Haloti Ngata. That'd be fun.
Yeah, and that's that guy who's just, I feel like the D tackles just get underappreciated constantly in terms of like what they do, because they don't stand out, they don't have the stats, they don't have the things. I mean, the things that a D tackle like that allow you to do on defense, that's the kind of stuff Jeff's breaking down that like most fans don't know.
And just like seeing what Dan did with like a Jalen Carter, I would love to see what he could do with a Haloti Ngata. That'd be fun. Yep. All right, let's wrap it up there. This has gone over an hour. Good for us. Just another reminder, if you are listening to this, check out the Jeff Schwartz Duck Rising Film Room, which dropped earlier this week. Also look out for the Ducks Rising Alumni Corner with EFO when it drops later this week. Again, while this podcast and these separate videos are free right now, once conference play begins in week 3 of the season, the videos are going to be for subscribers only. If you are not hooked up with Ducks Rising yet, just, now is the time. What are you doing, honestly? Head over to ducksrising.com, sign up. Remember, the 97% of all proceeds are going back to the athlete in the form of NIL, so truly is your best way to help contribute to the team and help Dan Lanning bring a championship to Eugene. This next week should be incredibly fun. We are in it now. We finally have game film for Jeff to break down. I'm so excited about that. We were planning to do a live show actually next week with Jeff, probably later in the week. So we will take questions from you on the instead of doing the Autzen Airwaves, we'll take live questions and figure out a way to do that. So stay tuned for more information on that. Do you have anything else to add before we get out of here?
Just this, I just want to reiterate, like, this would be an awesome time to give us a try. I mean, price point as low as $10 a month. 15 gets you, premium access to everything we're doing. In terms of the content we're churning out, I think one of the coolest features we have that many haven't been a part of is like our game day chat, because rather than a traditional message board, you're just like, it's live and it's flowing, and you don't have to refresh the page and go in and out of the app and different things. Like, this is just like a group chat, but with a bunch of diehards just like us. So one of the best parts I love is like the Saturday game day chat. So I just really encourage fans to check it out. If you don't like it, let me know. Refund your money. $15 a month. Try it out. You'll love the game day. You'll love the content coming out of it. You'll love the stuff coming out of it. So give us a try today.
Yeah, I'm excited for that game day chat. I have also not experienced that because I was not with it for the spring game or at all last year. So I'm really looking forward to that. Check us out on YouTube. You can find the Ducks Rising podcast on Apple or Spotify. And if you'd be so kind, give us a rating and review. That really helps us build this thing. You can follow me on social media at Zachary C. Neel. You can follow Travis at Travis Rooke-Ley. Most importantly, once again, go over to Lockerverse, check out Ducks Rising, subscribe now, and support the program. Let's rise together. We'll talk to you guys next week. Go Ducks.